Grim morning and welcome to the Grim. I'm your host, Kristin. On today's episode, we'll be opening the gate and entering the ossuaries of San Martino and Solferino, located in Lombardy, Italy. The aroma of coffee mingles in the air. The gates stand open. Step carefully. It's time to descend into the hauntings of history. When we think of Italy, many of us Americans picture Rome, pizza, wine, and of course the sun soaked beauty of southern Italy's coast. What we often forget is the northern Alpine region and its rich, complex history. As Americans, we're taught about our own revolution, but unless you study history in college, Italy's long and winding road to unification, the Italy we know today, tends to be lost on us. We might know bits of its medieval past before jumping straight into the modern nation, missing centuries of stories in between. The ossuaries located in Lombardy are two places that many Americans might find especially intriguing, precisely because we've never heard of them. But before we step inside, it's worth defining what an ossuary actually is. If you've been with the Groom since season one, you may remember the episode featuring Portugal's ossuaries. But if you're new, or if it's been a while, I've got you covered. An ossuary is a chest, building, or a site that serves as a final resting place for skeletal remains. The word comes from the Latin word os, meaning bone. Ossuaries were often created as a practical solution to limited burial spaces. Bodies would first be buried in temporary graves. Then, after several years, the bones were carefully moved to a communal resting place. In a sense, it's a form of grave recycling, sacred, efficient, and deeply symbolic. The ossuaries in Lombardy, while sacred, are also deeply symbolic to Italy's fight for independence. The bones displayed within these walls tell a story of intrigue, sacrifice, and national pride. Those drawn to taptophilia or the macabre may have stumbled across their images online already. Hauntingly beautiful Italian chapels that seem almost too surreal to be real. Behind their quiet facade lies a sight both reverent and unsettling. Tall cabinets stretching from the floor to ceiling in the apse, filled not with books but with human skulls. A narrow staircase descends behind the altar, leading to a lower chamber where the rest of the remains rest in silence. The bones of Italy's fallen sons lie within the ossuary itself, their presence felt in every stone and shadow. What makes the ossuaries even more intriguing is that they don't only hold Italian bones. Within their sacred walls rest the remains of enemies and allies alike, a silent history lesson carved in bone and dust. To understand why and who these men were, we first must return to the battlefield that claimed them. We're going back to June 24th, 1859, when the fields of Solferino ran red. The clash known in Italy as the Battle of Solferino and San Martino was not merely a fight between nations, but a brutal turning point in the birth of modern Italy. Battle marked a decisive moment in the Second Italian War of Independence, a blood-soaked chapter in the story of the Risorgimento. Italy's struggle to rise from centuries of division into unity. For generations, the peninsula had been carved apart, claimed by foreign powers, France, Austria, Spain, and fractured into rival states. Before dawn, the French advance moved into the northern sector and soon clashed with Austrian forces, while the center of the battlefield remained fiercely contested in Solferino, Cavriana, and Volta Mantovana. Repeated attacks tore through the lines, and by mid afternoon, French reserves broke through at Cavriana, shattering the Austrian center and forcing a general retreat. Under a merciless sun, nearly 300,000 soldiers converged on the rolling countryside, one of the largest clashes Europe had seen since Leipzig in 1813. Unlike modern wars, this one was carried out with an ancient echo. Monarchs themselves led their men into battle for the last time in history. On the northern flank, Sardinian forces struck at dawn, moving through the surrounding villages of San Martino. The Austrians held their ground with overwhelming numbers, but the Sardinians attacked repeatedly. Waves of soldiers clashing against the defensive lines. By evening, after a final desperate assault, the hills were seized, and the Austrian troops withdrew into the shadows of defeat. The battle had raged on for more than 9 brutal hours. When it ended, over 2,300 Austrian soldiers lay dead, more than 10,000 wounded, and 9,000 were missing. The Franco-Sardinia alliance suffered nearly as many losses. 2,300 were killed, 12,000 wounded, and thousands more unaccounted for. Reports from the field speak of horrors few could stomach today. Wounded men shot or bayoneted where they fell, mercy abandoned in the chaos of war. Though the French and Piedmontese claimed victory, it came at an unbearable cost. The Austrians retreated to fortified strongholds, and the campaign for a moment was over. But the land of Lombardy would never be the same. Its soil had been baptized in blood. When the smoke cleared, Emperor Franz Joseph would never take the field in person again. The land itself seemed to grieve, littered with the wounded and the dead, the air still trembling with cries that refused to fade. Among those who heard them was a Swiss man named Jean-Henri Dunant. Though not a soldier, he arrived in the aftermath, witnessing the carnage firsthand from Solferino. Horrified by the suffering of men abandoned where they fell, he gathered what help he could: local women, carriages, church pews transformed into makeshift beds, and tended to the soldiers from both sides beneath the vaulted ceiling of the Duomo. Those days, though, haunted him. Dunant later wrote a memory of Solferino, a book born from horror and compassion. From its pages would rise something extraordinary: the Geneva Conventions and the founding of the International Red Cross. In the years that followed, the wounds of war refused to fade. The fields where men once cried out for water and mercy became sacred ground, a graveyard without names. Thousands of soldiers, French, Austrian, and Italian alike, lay buried beneath the soil of Lombardy, their bodies claimed by the earth that had witnessed their agony. With so many fallen scattered across the fields of Solferino and San Martino, proper burials were impossible. To prevent the stench of decay, the bodies were hastily covered with soil in wide ditches. A mass grave was far from hygienic, but for epidemiological reasons, health laws forbade exhumation until at least 10 years had passed. In 1870, the remains were finally exhumed and placed respectfully in two carnal houses. A church in Solferino and a chapel in San Martino became the final resting places for the soldiers from both sides. The small chapel of San Martino della Battaglia was once a part of the monastery of Santa Giulia in Brescia, was transformed into an ossuary after the war. Its sacred walls, once monastic, now house the remains of thousands of soldiers, where the echoes of war are etched into bones. Within its apse, 1,274 skulls are stacked in solemn rows, while the crypt topped with an iron railing holds the bones of 2,619 soldiers. Each fragment bears a silent witness to the carnage of Solferino, a testament to the lives lost and the terrible cost of nationhood. The landscape surrounding the chapel is dotted with reminders of the battle that once tore it apart. Rising above the fields, the circular Tower of San Martino dominates the horizon, a 70-meter monument built in 1893 to honor Victor Emmanuel II in the struggle for Italian unification. Visitors who climb its spiral staircase are rewarded with sweeping views of the region. Inside, the tower tells its own story. Its walls adorned with bronze busts and frescoes depicting the fever and sacrifice of the Risorgimento. Behind the tower, a museum displays relics unearthed from the battlefield: arms, cannons, uniforms, and the ordinary belongings of men who fought and fell here. Together, they offer a deeper look into a conflict that forever helped shape Italy and the world. Not far from San Martino, the Ossuary of Solferino preserves another chapter of that same dark history. Tucked within a small cypress grove in the Via Saro, the building rests on a gravel path that leads to its solemn entrance. Once the parish church of San Pietro, the oldest house of prayer in Solferino, it was nearly destroyed during the 1859 battle. When the guns fell silent, time itself became the healer. By 1870, the church was reborn as the ossuary it is today. The entrance still bears mosaics of St. Peter and Christ, crowned by a statue of the Madonna. To the right, a memorial plaque honors Henry Dunant's vision of the Red Cross, inscribed with the haunting phrase, Inter arma caritas, among arms, charity. Some skulls still bear terrible wounds, bullet holes, shattered bone, mute evidence of the ferocity that raged across these hills. Within its walls, two complete skeletons, once French soldiers, stand as eternal witnesses. In total, the ossuary holds 1,413 skulls and roughly 7,000 bones, carefully arranged inside the old church. Within, busts of French generals line the walls, yet they pale beside the staggering display of skulls in the apse. The crypt below reveals still more bones, neatly arranged beside the flags of France, Austria, and Italy. Alongside the side altars, cages brim with stacked remains, organized by type, while barred chambers hold complete skeletons and further collections of the dead. A short distance away, the International Red Cross Museum carries the story forward. Here in the same buildings that once sheltered the wounded, the tale of human compassion born from horror is preserved. Proof that from the bones of war, mercy itself took shape. In the ossuaries, the skulls seem to stare back, their hollow eyes catching the light in unsettling ways. But no stories of hauntings are retold here. Behind the iron bars, complete skeletons sit silently, witnesses to a violence that reshaped nations. Even in museums nearby, the artifacts of guns, cannons, uniforms bear the imprints of lives abruptly ended, each a piece of fragment of human suffering frozen in time. The Tower of San Martino looms above it all, a sentinel over a landscape steeped in blood and memory. From its spiral staircase, the serene hills of Lake Garda and beyond seem at odds with the horrors that once unfolded here. But if you look closer, at the battlefield's echoes, they persist. The soil itself remembers the cries, the anguish, and the cost of unification. The Grimm recommends exploring the San Martino della Battaglia, a haunting complex of monuments and memorials to Italy's unification, steeped both in history and beauty. Though the names and stories of those who perished have faded, their presence endures. Stripped of flesh, reduced to bone, they leave an indelible mark upon all who enter. It's a sacrifice of blood for the Italy we know today. San Martino and Solferino are more than history. They're the mausoleums of memory, ossuaries of sacrifice. Each skull, each bone, each relic whispers of patriotism, horror, and fleeting humanity. Here, the Risorgimento is written not only in stone and scripture, but in blood and silence. And although centuries have passed, the voices of Solferino still linger, soft, unyielding reminders that the birth of nations is never without a cost. For now, the stories of the ossuaries of San Martino and Solferino slip back into stone, and the dead return to their uneasy rest. Yet they're never silent for long. Thank you for walking with us through the veil into the ossuaries of San Martino and Solferino, descending once more into the hauntings of history. The gate is sealed, the veil drawn, yet death keeps no calendar, and so we shall return, as we always do, on the grim.